Let's talk a little bit about Grammarly. If you're anything like me, YouTube has probably pestered you with adverts for Grammarly for ages. I don't know, maybe it's just the type of stuff I look at elsewhere, and that's the reason I'm getting hammered with them. But it kind of worked, I suppose, because I am now someone who uses Grammarly, and I thought I would write a review about what I think of it and the good and the bad points. So what is it? And initially I'm just going to use a quote from Wiki to tell you exactly what Grammarly is. Grammarly is an app that automatically detects potential grammar, spelling, punctuation, word choice, and style mistakes in writing. Grammarly's algorithms flag potential issues in the text and suggest context-specific corrections for grammar, spelling, wordiness, style, punctuation, and plagiarism even. In short, it's not really doing much more than a decent word processor could probably do in 1984.
One of the things that we do here, we do many of the things that we just saw Wayne demonstrate. We have the proofreading side, and we have a prose which is going to do a stylistic analysis of the text that we have out here. I'll be very brief here. It goes over spelling, it goes over punctuation, double words, diction, many of the things you just saw, but it also looks for split infinitives, and that's one of the powerful parts of it.
So why not just use Microsoft Word or Pages or something like that? Well, the good thing about Word, of course, is that it has most of that stuff already built into it, but it is fairly locked into the program itself. So while you're doing anything related to Microsoft Office, you've got all those corrections coming through. But as soon as you move away from that application, you lose the ability to have those corrections. Grammarly, of course, sits on top of all the rest of that stuff and forms a part through plugins and even through an iOS application. Can correct things in WhatsApp, or it can correct things in text messages, or Google Docs, or anything online, really. Even when I'm typing comments on, replying to comments on my YouTube channel, Grammarly will come in and say, oh, you spelled that wrong, or you've done this wrong, or that would be better. So it makes sense to have something like Grammarly sat over an umbrella app over the top of everything else, rather than a program-specific app doing this sort of stuff. Is it free? It is, but as usual, the free version comes with all those very nicely chosen service limitations that mean that if you really want to use this, you are going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for a premium subscription. And that's what I've shelled out. I've shelled out for an annual premium subscription so I could give this a good test, a good try, and see whether or not it became something that I wanted to use every day. How much does it cost? Well, at the time of writing, $140 a year for the premium subscription. But that's if you pay annually. If you pay monthly, they really do bump that up quite a bit, and you end up paying a lot more. Who would use Grammarly? Well, in my opinion, Grammarly is actually for someone who has a really good command of English. And that might sound counterintuitive, really, because some of their advertising certainly suggests that this could be used by foreign language students. And there are definitely elements of this that will work for foreign language students. However, some of the mistakes it makes, and yes, it does make some very bad ones, because I'm actually somebody who studied languages during my school life and during my university life. So I know about how they're taught, and I know about doing assignments to do with languages. So if I was writing something and I had a tool like this correcting things for me, unless I had an extremely good grasp of what I was writing in the first place, I wouldn't know whether that correction was right or not, necessarily. You might have a feel for it, and you might, I suppose you could double check it, but if you're going to start double checking it, what's the point? So I sort of just think that as far as basic spelling changes goes, and just kind of contractions and those type of corrections, yes, you could use this as a foreign language student. But if you're going to go a bit more in depth into the grammar choices, and style choices, then I think really you have to know what you're writing to start with, and know whether or not the suggestions it makes are something that you want to choose or not. As I was writing this script, it highlighted the word basic because it's overused, and it is overused, I think. However, they suggested to replace it with the word primary. And in the sentence, in any English sentence that I was writing of that type, the word primary would not have worked, could not have worked. It was just complete garbage, this suggestion. So Therefore, if you're just not quite sure whether or not that's going to be the right choice or not, you might think, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll put that in instead. And you've made an absolutely fatal mistake in your writing. Right, anyway, let's move on to the good and the bad. The good points. Firstly, the editor. The editor's absolutely fantastic. It has the Grammarly website has a built-in editor, a bit like a really basic Google Docs, and it allows you to type, and obviously type from any computer that you're at, and just has all the tools available there within the editor itself. They should make more of this editor. They should put that on the iOS app as well, because I hate the fact that I go to my phone and I go into the app on there and all that has is the keyboard. It just has the keyboard that corrects things for you. It has none of that editor in there. I really like the editor. And yes, the editor sits on top of all the other programs that you use, but it's nice having it in Grammarly itself. Something that I really like to use, and I think they should make more of that. Okay, so this section I put as the writer's assistant. And I noticed this was something that came up in their advertising as well. Grammarly really becomes someone watching over your shoulder to say, actually, what you've written there sounds a bit shit. You might want to change how you've put that, or what about this instead? And to start with, you actually end up being a little bit sort of, don't tell me what to do, my writing's fine. But then you look at it again and you think about it and you think, actually, you're right, that just doesn't flow or doesn't match, or it is way too wordy, because yeah, when I'm doing these videos, I'm sort of improvising now as I'm talking. So yeah, there is a lot of fluff in there, a lot of words, and sorry if you are people who love super concise videos, it's not how I work, okay? But my text can be, because it will tell you whether you're being too wordy and whether you're overusing stuff. And that's really good. And again, there's something that I tend to do when I'm writing. If I'm kind of splitting up my writing over various times, so I might write one bit one day and then another bit in the next few days, my style will change just purely depending on my mood. And this will keep that in line. So if you start drifting into, if you're writing a technical text and you start drifting into the passive voice, it will call that out and say that to you. And you have to get used to these things and what they mean. It's worth reading up on the help and how learning a bit more about the grammar side of things that it's actually telling you about, because that helps you make those decisions as to whether you want to agree with it or not. But it is great to constantly have that person over your shoulder, or that program over your shoulder, saying, this is crap, change it, or you've just made an absolute mistake here, and here's the reason why, if you want to go into that detail. That side of it, the writer's assistant, as I'm calling it, is really good. So yeah, consistency, I just mentioned that already, the whole sort of keeping your writing style and flow and the way it reads back to others consistent is great too. The performance stats, I love stats. I love stats about anything really, and it provides you with kind of a weekly summary, and you can go into the stats of the text you're writing at that particular time, and it tells you how amazing your writing is. Oddly, it scores a lot of my writing in the top 1% of anything ever checked on Grammarly, with comparable goals. So either I'm writing some really super obscure stuff, or I'm possibly like some weird evil genius. I'm not quite sure where it gets those stats from, but as far as the word count and that kind of thing go, I don't think you can do too much wrong with that. All right, add-ons. It has loads of add-ons to go on various bits of software to support various bits of software, and Grammarly can continue to write those and change them and support them and add them onto new bits of software. So really, this can be expanded to be used on anything, and that side of it is good. Right, the bad points. Let's look at some of the bad points then. The price, it's really quite expensive. The premium plan, when I bought this, felt like a lot of money. If you're someone that writes every day, and if writing is absolutely essential to your job, and you're going to improve your SEO scores on a blog or something as a result of this tool, then you can make this money back easily. But for me, as someone who occasionally writes scripts for the videos I do, not that often, but I still feel that I like to have that bit of support, it just felt expensive. $140 laid out for this service. I don't know, it just felt like quite an expensive product to me. The editor that I mentioned before, yes, I love it, but it does need some work, and I said it doesn't work on iOS. That needs changing. There needs to be maybe an additional app or something to allow you, in the same way as you would on Google Docs, to go into that editor on your phone and make changes. Because a lot of time I might be sat on public transport, grab my phone out, think of an idea, want to write something, I want to stick it in there. I don't want to put it in Google Docs. I want to keep it all in one place, and I want that editor to exist and be usable in more places than just on a laptop or a PC or a Mac. Internet access is, of course, required for this to work. When you're typing, it is constantly chucking data back at Grammarly, presumably. I don't know what they do with all that data and all that text. I presume it's encrypted both, and maybe not too sure. But of course, internet is required at all times for this to work. In my case, at work, this works fine. But the apps, the actual add-ons won't work on my work computer, but that's fine because that's a secure sort of corporate sort of laptop, so I wouldn't expect it to. But you might want to check that, because you might end up buying a tool that you just can't use in all the places that you want to be able to use it in, because of firewall restrictions or because of some VPN. You're on a VPN and you just can't use it, because of the network setup, or I don't know, whatever. But check that. It's worth checking that you can use it. This next section I titled as "It's All the Same." What I mean by that is, while it's very nice having an assistant helping you with your writing, the help it gives is probably really similar for everybody. So everybody's going to get the same suggestions and the same changes. When I write, I really just write as I speak. That's my style, and it is changing my style. Therefore, other people might have a little style, and it will change their style. And it all gets funneled down this central route, which, yes, may be nice to read, nicer and simpler to read, but it may also become a little bit, I don't know, it might just lose some of those quirks and those niceties that make your writing your own. I have no evidence of that, and I don't know whether it's true, but that's just something that I kind of think might happen. It's weird. I mean, if you look back at episodes of the Computer Chronicles from the early 80s, people said the same sort of things about word processors. They came about and people said, oh, spelling checks, and people are never going to be able to spell ever again, and grammar checks, therefore all this text is going to sound the same. Clearly it didn't happen, and you're all using your own unique sentences and words, but I just kind of thought maybe something's going to be lost somewhere in that mix when you're constantly having your work corrected. You're going to end up second guessing yourself, and you're going to lose some of your style in the process. Security. Now, I don't know where all the text I'm typing is going. They are checking my text. They're saying your text is better than X%. So if they're checking that text against other texts, then they must be able to make sense of that text. So I'm just thinking end-to-end encryption surely can't work. I don't know how encryption works. I'm not going to claim to. So I'm sort of thinking, is everything I type on every device going somewhere to a database at Grammarly, and they're holding it all? What are they doing with it? How does that work? I don't know. Security could be a concern for you, and it wasn't a concern so much for me, because people can read this if they want, but it could be for some. So it might be something you want to look into in a bit more detail. Simply put, Grammarly gets it wrong, no question. Sometimes it misses the most basic mistakes. It's absolutely cringeworthy. I've had a situation where I've had what I describe as an infinite correction loop. That's my name for it, nobody else's. What that means is you have a bit of text and it suggests changing a word, and you change that word to what it suggests, and then it comes up with it as a mistake and says change it back to what it was in the first place, and you can just go backwards and forwards. It's not a perfect algorithm, and again, some of the okay, so I'll see if I can give you an example here. Some word replacements are absolutely ludicrous. They really are. If I write, the solution is nice and easy. So think of that sentence, right? The solution is nice and easy. It sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? It's not a particularly nice sentence, and it definitely needs some refinement, and Grammarly will probably call it out as needing refinement. But replacing easy with smooth or comfortable is crazy. So the solution is nice and comfortable. What, really? No, I don't think so. The solution is nice and smooth. Right. You know what I mean? Some of these suggestions are absolutely mad, and you have to watch out for that, because again, it goes back to, if you are a foreign language student and you're using a tool like this, you may accept those words. You may think they're absolutely fine in English. They're not, and Grammarly makes mistakes. So in conclusion, I am really enjoying using the tool. I found I've learned a lot about grammar. I found that the key mistakes that I make when I'm writing, and I'm certain that my writing has improved as a result. If there's one thing, yeah, definitely, that it's taught me, is that I have to read, I have to reread, and I have to reread, and then potentially get somebody else to read a text if I want it to be correct. You can read through stuff so many times and it won't be right necessarily. You will miss stuff. It's crazy how your eyes just miss words and just spelling mistakes here and there. And it's definitely taught me that I need to proofread my texts more. Regardless of whether you pay again for the next annual subscription, you're going to carry on what you've been taught by the tool into future writing. So there you go. There's my review of Grammarly. Let me know what you think. Have you ever used it? Have you got bored of the adverts yet? I still get pestered with the adverts, even though I actually have this thing installed on my computer. That's one of those things that always annoys me about all adverts online. Still, it's a great tool and well worth a look. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.